another episode of the Shoot It Straight podcast.
Here we go.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking
I
me
know.
how I'm doing.
I think we should check in more.
Should we?
Yeah.
Instead of asking each other if you drank all the coffee?
That's why I had to get... See, this is like round 2 of coffee because I didn't get enough coffee this morning.
Or
so
you
no,
done-
I didn't drink all the coffee.
Or are you done using the microwave? Those are usually like our greetings.
Oh, I think the coffee is much more important than the microwave. What do we microwave? Oh, you mean like when we're
For our
preparing?
food. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because we never eat the same thing. So we're always...
Well, that's not true that we don't eat the same things. We eat a
unless
lot
it
of the
was-
same
Unless it was
basic
sushi
things.
last night.
We meal prep and eat a lot of the same things. We just we go on our own schedules and eat at different times and have, of course, different quantities of things. We don't eat that much different things.
Yeah. Good point.
We really don't.
Good point. And you eat like a lot of your food straight cold, which is always weird.
Yeah, I know. It's funny when I talk to clients about that who like struggle so much about, I don't have access to a microwave. And I'm like, I don't think that matters. Like I dead ass don't think it matters.
Yeah, you'll eat cold meat and peas and potatoes cold.
I mean, as long as access to a refrigerator is nice so things don't spoil, but like by the time you're eating it for lunch, it's like room temperature and it's fine. You just get used to it. I mean, some people might think that's so weird, but it's like if you were camping or if you were out fishing, like it would not be any different. That's just how, I don't know. I guess I just got used to that maybe a long time ago in my early life. Never really thought about it like that, but you really don't need to microwave your food. Food doesn't have to be hot. People tend to overcomplicate the shit out of all of that stuff.
Just eat it. Put food in your mouth and
Just eat it. Just put it in a container. Take it to go. That's called how you take food to go. The end of story.
Yep.
So anyway, I don't know how we got onto that tangent, but I'm doing good. How are you? You didn't ask me how I was doing.
Oh, how are you doing?
I'm good.
You having fun over there squatting, rocking your Jinx hat? Introduce Erika to the Jinx.
Jinx.
It's Jinx.
Okay, there's an E.
Doesn't matter.
There's an E in Jinx.
That's how we say it. You're in Oklahoma now.
Jinx.
You're in cowboy country now. That's how we say it.
Oklahoma.
Oh, that sounded weird. I don't know what that was.
Trying to learn how to like do the phonetics of everything out here. Apparently it's different.
It is. We're not on the East Coast anymore.
No, we are not. We are not. I don't know that I have an East Coast accent, but you definitely have you say things a little off sometimes. It's got weird things like saying sack instead of bag.
Things go in sacks. That's what you put them in, and you carry them around in a sack.
Oh,
all right, what are we actually going to talk about today? We're going
Okay.
to talk about training with injuries or just injuries in general.
Oh, God, cut to the
And-
chase,
and-
Capricorn vibes.
Well, we've already dilly-dallied enough. It's a couple minutes in. It's,
Sometimes it's nice to just chat
Okay.
and like break the ice a little bit.
Well, I think it's broken. Now it's time to...
Okay, today we are talking about injury, and we're coupling that. We're going to go through a couple iterations of training with injuries and then also talk a little bit about footwear in your training, which I think is one of my favorite. Like if I had to pick a topic, there's so many fun things. That's why we started a podcast.
Well, because you're a girl, you like shoes.
No. I just think that this is like a pet peeve. Like the amount of hokas that I see people squatting in the gym. Again, we weren't members of Globo gyms, or I wasn't for a really long time. I mean, I can't recall the last time I was a member of a Globo gym, honestly. Before we moved here, when we joined gyms, but like it was pandemic, and then
Washington Sports Clubs
before that,
in
was
DC.
yeah, that's true.
We went there all the time, and I worked at one.
You worked there. I guess I just didn't. Maybe I just didn't know any different. Yeah, I paid attention to the footwear. Yeah, you're right. But that's been a long time. That was 2018.
Once I can stereotype someone. Like if you walk in like running shoes and you start walking over to the squat rack, I'm gonna go ahead and assume you probably don't have good form. Like that's just, and I'm gonna be right. So I don't know if that makes it a stereotype or not, but it is what it is.
No, but in all seriousness, okay, so WSC, that was 5 years ago, so it's been a minute, and now that we're back in, like, the Globo gym space, it's so funny to watch people, because there are so many different types of just bodies and training, and there's lots of things happening. Of course, it's just general pop in general, like, at large, you can see certain themes of things happening, but oh my God, the footwear thing. I cannot believe in this 2023... we're still wearing, like, we think of running or people just think sneakers, which goes to a running shoe, and that immediately translates to this is what I should wear to the gym. Like, I can't believe we really haven't gotten past that.
Is it because the running shoe is you're doing something athletic like running, then you might as well go ahead and do everything else that you're doing athletically in those same shoes? Is that what you think people think?
I don't know, because I don't think that everybody is necessarily running in them. I mean, not necessarily everyone wearing them is running. That's just their version of, because I think it's more, that's the type of sneaker that existed for so long. If you think about like a general sneaker, which is hard to, like, if you remember back in the 90s, there weren't Metcons. There weren't flat shoes to train in. Like, you kind of had like your Chucks that people would wear to the gym to lift weights in. Maybe you would see barefoot people, maybe, probably not. Or you would just, that's what I'm saying, or you would just have the trainer, like the other version of like just the sneaker that people ran in. Like, you got your like New Balances, and like Nike kind of had their thing going on, and they didn't have 17 iterations of shoes. Yeah,
I mean, you had like the Air Maxes, and like that's what I grew up wearing. I loved those. I was never a Chuck Taylor guy because they're too narrow for me. But I mean, yeah, but I also don't remember like these like now running shoes are like massive. They're like moon shoes.
Well, and to your point, now there are a lot more.
They've evolved.
There are a lot more running shoes. There are a lot more all kinds of shoes, but running is included in that. And now you have running stores, and you have running stores dedicated to 38 different types of shoes for men and 48 different types of shoes for women, or that's flip-flopped because there's always less for women. But yes, there's 18 different ways of running. If you pronate, if you don't pronate, if you pronate sometimes on Tuesdays, if you're like, it's just like so wild. And I think that's a good thing. We'll get into that, of like being able to at least have more options nowadays, because feet are so individual, just like our bodies are. And also what sport you're training for and what you need them like for. I mean, I genuinely have it. I genuinely do need like 4 pairs of shoes to train in, like at minimum. If
I take 2 different pairs to the gym.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to just like
every day.
Metcon, like Nike Metcons, lifters are very like different shoes. You have like a pair of running shoes, and you have maybe like a hybrid. Mm-hmm. That's 4, like just kind of off the top of my head. And, you know, there's maybe another couple in there that I definitely would put into the rotation. But anyway, enough about, I guess, the evolution. But I mean, it is wild. There are a lot of options out there, which of course I think becomes more confusing for people. But you still see so many people just out there rocking the squishy Skechers and the Hokas and the running shoes for their. And it's funny because I think a lot of people too, and I know you've heard this. It's like, I don't want to spend another $80 or $100 on a pair of shoes. Price is always the first thing that I think people just react, and they immediately just that.
Which is understandable. The shoes are expensive.
Shoes are, but if you, again, we've both coached, again, thousands of clients combined who pay $40 for a drop-in fitness class, or $150 for a gym membership, or $150 a session to work with you and me. Mm-hmm. Can they afford a pair of $80 to $100 training shoes? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. They actually can. Mm-hmm. But it's like so mind-blowing for something. It's like when you invest in like a mattress or something that you're literally spending 8 hours a day on every day for 10 years. People are like, no, I'm spend $100. Like, I don't mind spending money on shoes because I genuinely do train and use and wear them. Like 90% of all of my shoes, like they get worn and they get used. Mm-hmm.
And I learned it the hard way to wear proper footwear for your specific activity.
Yeah, so like let's start there too. Like, we'll go into shoes first because I think that'll lead us into injury, because we've talked about your plantar fasciitis, which you've been dealing with for literally like over a decade, or maybe before that.
No, it hadn't been over a decade, but it was when I started doing running, when I started running a lot more.
I felt like we talked about this before, and because you were on your feet a lot in the restaurants. I feel like stuff started for you, like, because again, how great was your footwear back then when you were wearing the no-slip black shoes that they make you wear?
Yeah, when I was a kitchen manager, you wore like Crocs all day long. And you stood for 12 plus hours every day.
It's a crazy.
So yeah, I mean, my feet would swell up. I don't know if it's different than what I have now, but yeah, that's a good point. Like, I've had foot issues, but I feel like everyone, that was just part of the job. Like, everyone had their swollen feet at the end of the night because you're just standing on them all day. And and not to mention in the kitchen when they get wet, it's disgusting.
And you think too about like, and I think women still to this day, but it's a little less. Like, you see more people commuting in different shoes, but like, you know, women wearing their heels that, like, I mean, if you've ever, I know this is mean, guys might not understand this, but heels are like not built for people with normal feet. Like, I mean, they're tiny, or if they were bigger, they would look horrible, right? So
they have to be small.
They have to be small because they have to look cute and sexy and sleek and narrow and then curvy and whatever. Like I get it. Like, I'm not a shoe designer, but like, women used to wear those all the time, 12 hours a day before it was like before like even fashion sneakers now are, I mean, that's been a thing now for the last 5+ years. It's awesome. I love that. I'm so here for that. I hope that stays forever, which I think it will. But that didn't exist before. So it was just like, cool, squeeze your foot into this ballet flat or these tiny heels or whatever. And you're just like going completely against your body, like beyond. Yeah. It's like somebody that's that's a size 8 is wearing a size 0 pants all day. Like, we would never do that. It would be so fucking uncomfortable. Like, it would hurt, but we do that to our feet. It's bizarre.
Yeah. I remember like just seeing it for the first time when I moved to Washington, D.C. and I started taking the subway or the metro to work and things like that. And I'd see, women get on with their sneakers and like their nice like dress. Yeah. And I'm like, I imagine like that's not what they got their bag. They're going to change, or maybe they have their regular shoes at work or something like that. But I was like, that's not what they're going to wear all day, but it was smart. DC
definitely got made fun of. I remember like in the days before like social media really was huge, but like just the blogs or the whatever, but I guess when BuzzFeed, like New York and LA would like rail on DC women for like not being the prettiest or whatever, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but it was like, I mean, it's kind of true. Like, you got the fetties that are just kind of in their black suits. It's not about fashion. The city is all about business. It's all about work. It's all about professionalism.
It's all about power.
It's all about like looking like you actually are important. Yes, exactly. But yeah, like you don't necessarily see that in New York City. You see it in DC where people just aren't out to like be a fashionista. They're just like, cool, I literally commute 2 miles a day on my feet. Yeah. So
the subway stations aren't as close together as they are in New York City.
Right.
So
so you gotta walk sometimes.
Sometimes you gotta walk a while to get to your station.
But. Yes, and wait and stand on your feet to wait between trains. But anyway, back to like footwear and how it relates to our conversation of training in the gym. I mean, so go back to your plantar fasciitis a little bit. So that, let's just say that you've been dealing with that, I don't know, for 5 years since you started running.
So when I started running more, right, or like running, more consistently, I was in the gym all the time, and I knew that wearing the squishy running shoes, and I always think they're ugly too, but that just wasn't. I just lifted weights all the time. So like, and I knew like when I squatted, like those are not good shoes. So I was buying like like Nobles and Metcons, and just other, flat sole shoes. I was into barefoot shoes for a while, not the ones with the toe fingers.
You had the Merrells for your deadlifting.
Actually, I still have them. Those same exact ones, but like Vivos, stuff like that. Like, so like I was wearing, minimalist type shoes, just for lifting weights, and they were great for lifting weights. And even like walking a little bit was fine. Like I commuted as well. So like I would walk in those and it wasn't a big deal. But it was when I got into running, and I still wore those same shoes when I was running. Like, granted, it was on a treadmill most of the time, on a Woodway, which was our great treadmills. But I developed plantar fasciitis pretty fast. I also went at it really hard to begin with. Like, I didn't like slowly integrate into running. I kind of went 0 to 100 really quick, and just dove headfirst into it. So yeah, I quickly got plantar fasciitis. And for those that don't know what it is like your plantar fascia is like in between like the balls and the heel of your foot. It's like that band in between, and it basically just feels like it's ripping apart. Like the middle of your foot is tearing apart, and it hurts like hell. It hurts every step you take. If you run, it really sucks. And so the reason like I really got that is because there was no cushion, and I was just, tons of impact from the running, just beat the hell out of my feet. Turns out like, you need, it was because I had like tight calves and weak glutes, and we'll get into that and how like the injury actually happened. But, it was because I didn't take the time to go get proper footwear, because my footwear was for squatting and deadlifting, which now we'll talk about why you don't want to wear the other side, other shoes.
Let's talk about why you got plantar fasciitis. We're not 100% sure. I think it's a culmination of a lot of the things, because you mentioned that it was from the footwear, but let's go back a little bit. Oftentimes what happens in our training in general is we go too hot too quickly, and running is one of those that happens a lot with people. I don't know what it is about running, but people go out to a run and they run to the point of exhaustion, and we've talked about this.
I had shin splints too, so I mean the running just beat the hell out of me.
Well, running is very hard, but the point I'm trying to make here is like, you don't go into a session of trying to learn the back squat and try to do your 1 rep max on day 1.
True.
But when we're going out for runs, for some reason, we run till we're exhausted or till it hurts. We don't do like 50%. People don't know where that is. And I get it, when you're new, maybe you don't know what that threshold is, but like, as soon as people get on the pavement, they're going till they can't anymore, till something hurts. And that is literally why we see so many running injuries, coupled with footwear is very, very, very important. Mm-hmm. But like form and technique in running, because we're just like able-bodied to go outside and go do it, we just think, oh, form and technique doesn't matter. Where it's like, as someone who was in the sport of running for a really long time, your form and technique is so huge. You're doing the most repetitions for running than you are basically in any other exercise. I can't imagine, besides like swinging the golf club in a round of golf, but running. But
you're still taking more steps than you are.
Still running, you're like doing the same motion over and over and over and over and over and over. And when you're on flat surfaces and you have no variation in, uphill, downhill, the muscles even that you're using are this, or even more the same. You're barely using glutes if you're not going on the uphill, or if you're not priming those parts of your body, like whatever. So anyway, I just think, since we are going to be talking about injuries, it's important to remember for people in general to try and pace yourself at large, but especially with running, especially if there are people it's getting warmer, we're trying to do like more golf specific cardio, getting our steps in. Mm-hmm. Don't overdo it, because leaving yourself injured and sore will mean that you'll need to take a long break after you do your training session, which means you might not get back on the wagon like as quickly as you wanted to, which means you give up and you repeat that cycle over and over again because you don't know how to find that like 50%. But
yeah, I definitely never found the 50%. It was like go until like I'm about to fall off the treadmill, and then jump to the side, catch my breath, walk, do it again. And
yeah, I mean, but that's not unique to you. That's like so many people.
No, that was everyone. That was
that's
the whole
everyone.
class.
We'll just go, just push, and you could even like say this.
Get back up there.
Get back up there and do it again, or like whatever. And it's like, what are we doing? Like that's nonsense. But anyway.
Yeah. So that's one. So that was wearing the wrong shoes for running. What we see it more often, it's the wrong shoes for lifting.
Wrong shoes for lifting. So let's talk about what we should be wearing, because you mentioned already a few names of shoes, but I think a lot of people are still new to like Noble and even like the Metcon. Like, what is that? Like, why are those shoes the best? Or what are the differences between the ones that we've tried? Like, you wear your Metcons for most of your workouts, right?
Right. So I mean, I wear the Nike Metcon, the 7s. So I don't know if I can show them up right there. So I think they're wider than the newest version, which is the 8s.
Yeah.
And they've kind of had that. They've had the hit and miss over the years for me. I think you've always kind of found that they work for you, but certain years work better for me. And then there's a million other brands, or maybe not a million, but there's a lot of other brands out there that are creating a similar type shoe. It's flat soled, it's hard soled. There's no big arch or anything like that. I prefer it to be wider so your toes and feet can spread out. But the reason you want that is you want that hard base, that contact, that minimal contact between your foot and the ground. You don't want a giant sole like a running shoe in between it, because you'll lose power and stability. Because we get all of our energy from the ground when we push into the ground, and instead of like having a small barrier between you and the ground, and you've got this big cushion, and you will just lose some of that ground reaction that you're getting and then lose power.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember that the running shoe, generally speaking, that we know today is meant for propelling you forward. Mm-hmm. It doesn't literally, there's not a little engine like in the back or whatever. But I mean,
did some of them get banned because they did have a little engine in there?
the Nike
Vaporfly or something, right?
Yeah,
something
I can't remember the number. Now it's just like off the tip of my tongue. Yeah, the zero.
And those were like kind of even funky to walk in. Like they only feel good running.
So I did remember did you remember when I had them for that 10 miler I did not that long ago? Like last summer, last fall.
10 miler.
I did that 10 mile team race with some of the athletes from Elevate in 2020.
Oh yeah. I do remember that now.
I bought those shoes because we were doing like a downhill fast 10 miler from Bethesda down into Georgetown in DC.
Right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And so, but I had to train a little bit in those shoes to learn how to kind of, that's a whole nother thing too with running. But again, even in your training, just getting used to your shoe is important to like be mindful of like not necessarily wearing them for 3 hours the very first time, like easing in, whatever. But forget where I was going with this. Oh yeah, but like, so running shoes, I mean, they're not meant to be necessarily even like anything lateral is happening. They are all about like, okay, impact, cushioning the impact from the ground, reducing that impact and rolling forward, right. not moving laterally, not necessarily feeling the earth like the way that you need to for like a deadlift or a squat. You want to like barely feel the earth
because you want to keep like
pushing
away from the earth.
Forward. Yeah. That's right. So they're very, very, very different things.
And then so that we see that a lot, right? Like, and then you can just see someone's unstable, and your foot will tell, and that's why this is so important, because like obviously our foot, like on a lot of lifts, is the only thing that's in contact with the ground, unless you're like on a bench or on your knees or something like that, or on like a push up. But you know, for a lot of exercises, your feet are the only thing in contact with the ground, and you will just want to have that, you know, feeling, right? Because your foot will tell a lot about the movement that you're doing. Like for example, if someone was only going to show me, if I only could look at like a small part of someone doing a squat, I would choose their feet, because it'll tell me, and it'd be barefoot, or you know, because that'll tell me what's going on all the way up the chain, you know, from knees, hips, stuff like that. Like I can probably almost tell like if you're getting forward, like if the bar is going forward, you're up on your toes. So we want to make sure that we can connect with the ground and be very stable, so that way our entire lift will be stable from the ground up.
Yeah, I mean that's physics too. If you think about how tires on your car are very important. The foundation of your house. Like we could make a million analogies, but
so like the running shoes, like you're talking about, like they're not meant to, like they don't really go laterally that well. They don't do certain things. There's not a lot of stability. So as soon as you kind of start to let your knees cave in on a squat, for example, and your foot pronates, that means like your arch kind of disappears and like flattens. If you don't, you know, some people already have flat feet, but anyways, then your knee will cave in. And you're just going to lose stability. You could actually injure your knee, back, hips, all that kind of stuff. So the stability down your feet is just imperative for how you're going to do a lift.
Well,
deadlift, squats, lunges, presses, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so a flat shoe, you know, again, the Nike Metcon is a good one. I like the Metcon too. I like the 8s. I'm not wearing the 8s right now. These are my I dressed this outfit is literally from 2016. Like I've literally had every piece of clothing that I'm wearing for like 12 years. But I like the Nike Metcon 8s. Nobles I liked for a hot minute, until they started breaking down, and just they're $130. I will say they are expensive, and you get not a lot of wear out of them. They break down very, very quickly. I think the uppers like just fall apart and rip. I don't really recommend them for anything, honestly, but like maybe a squat or something, like very much just lifting, nothing dynamic, no jumping, not even like lunging, because they just feel like hot garbage. That's my take on the Noble. Rad
there goes that sponsorship.
Oh, I mean, it's just me being honest. You could also speak to your experience with them.
You a Noble shirt.
You wore them a lot. Yeah, they have certain things that are okay. That's what I'm saying. Like this shirt just happens to last forever from them. You wore Nobles for a minute at Elevate.
I think I've had one pair of Nobles.
And
because I'm cheap.
I'm wondering though, because you like probably ran in those a lot on the treadmill.
Yeah. I was on my feet on those all the time.
Rad Global is a really cool company. Those shoes are kind of like a good hybrid shoe. I can literally do like a couple miles in them. So if you are doing like a gym workout, cross training, they have a little bit of extra support for like a run, but they also are flat and solid. They're not squishy foamy like a New Balance Fresh Foam or any of that kind of crazy stuff. What else do we like?
I mean, we also need to talk about lifting shoes too.
Yeah, so we can either go barefoot or
you can lifters. Do a lifter. So now when I say flat soles or a flat shoe, right? Like I'm talking about, like, you know, how running shoes have arches, right? Like, so you can actually get a lifting shoe that's still flat, but they raise the heel up. That helps you with your ankle dorsiflexion. So a lot of people are limited in, you know, just dorsiflexion is like, think about keeping your foot flat on the ground and then pushing your knee forward out over your toes. Which is, you know, good for a good squat movement and lunging and things like that. So a lifter will raise that up a little bit, changes your range of motion, and it allows it just to easier pass your knees over your toes. Helps you keep your like a more upright torso. It helps a lot of people in their squats.
I thought it was because of your ankle mobility.
Yeah.
But is that not?
It'll help your ankle mobility.
Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but like for a lot of people, ankle mobility, to your point, it starts from the ground up. We tend to like, oh, I can't go deep in my squat. What's wrong with my hips or whatever? But it's like, well, what's going on down below in your feet.
Right.
If you don't have the ankle mobility, I like that little extra bit in the lifters where I tend to like warm up a little bit barefoot for a second and like get my body like warmed up in that way. And that way, like when I'm starting to go heavy and then I put my lifters on, I get that little extra confidence.
A little extra
like,
boost. Yeah.
Like I got this now, because they're also hard as a rock. Like,
yeah, you don't want to really, you're not running in them. You're not really doing a whole lot else in them.
Yeah. Like it's kind of even goofy to like walk around in those shoes, even though I kind of like them.
I mean, I've had to use them for a couple of CrossFit workouts where, you know, you're doing like a clean or something like that. And then it's like, oh, I got to do like a
burpees or something.
Or it'll be like, you know, like a toast, like something like that. But they're kind of heavy. So it's like when you're doing like high rep stuff, it was hard because it's like, oh, now I'm going to do like high rep pull-ups and these things weigh like more than my normal shoes. And that adds up over time.
Totally it does. Totally. Yeah. Like a toes to bar gymnastics move in them is rough.
Yeah. I mean, it's not adding a ton of weight, but it changes it.
It changes it for sure. It's like wearing little ankle weights or whatever, but they're awesome.
Yeah. And the ones I got for Christmas are the tier TYR. So, I mean, they're wide soled. They were collaborated with the guy from Squat University, which he's a great follow on Instagram and YouTube. But they created them. They're wide. They're really stable. They're excellent shoes.
Yeah, I want to touch on the wideness thing real quick too, just in general, because we've talked about a lot of different shoes. But I think for people to understand how important it is to get a shoe. Not everybody has wide feet or whatever, but a lot of shoes I think are just narrow, like
especially
in
the toe box.
In the toe box. Narrow, yeah. So what people should do is like in the shoes that you're just any pair of shoes, honestly too. Like do this to your whatever everyday shoe that you're wearing out. Take the sole out, stick it on the floor, and then step on it with your foot and look where your foot falls on that thing. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you see like a skinny little sole, and your foot just like is on top of it and your toes are spreading out, flopping on this, like both sides, like literally, you know? And I think like that, again, that goes for like running shoes. I mean, it's really important to think about what position your feet are in and if they're squished in your, oh, bless you, Squat. Oh my. Yeah, Squat doesn't like he doesn't wear shoes. He like lets his paws fly.
He does have wide paws.
Yeah, but it's like so restrictive if we're kind of looking at like what our shoes are actually shaped like those tier lifters that you have are awesome. There's not another lifter out there, I don't think, that we know of that's like as like wide.
That. Right.
My Nike Romalios are pretty narrow, actually.
Yeah, and I had a pair of Adidas that, granted, that I mean, so like, you know, if you're just buying like shoes that, you know, you're only gonna wear in the gym, they'll last you a long time.
Oh, so, like, I've literally had mine for 5 years.
Yeah, I had the Adidas until you and your mom got me those for Christmas. I probably would have kept wearing them, but they are super narrow and they were squishing my toes together. But I had those for years.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like cycling shoes too. Like if you bring your spin shoes, whatever, that clip into your bike, it's like cool. You maybe you're making that $150 investment, but like if that's all you're not wearing them. If you're not wearing them outside, which typically with those types of shoes or a lifter, you're gonna get like. At least 5 years out of them, if not more.
Yeah, they could probably almost last you a lifetime if you really got.
You're probably going to outgrow them before they outgrow you.
Yeah,
honestly.
You're just going to get tired of them and buy something new.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Exactly. They last a really long time.
So yeah, that and so like the wideness, like I think that was also a contributing factor to how I ended up with the plantar fasciitis because I do have wide feet, so it was squishing my feet together. Wasn't really like kind of actually like restricts blood flow at certain points when you can't like spread your feet out and like they're just crammed in there and they actually like cut off some of the supply. So that could have been one of the contributing factors to my plantar fasciitis that, that I didn't have enough like just blood flow through my foot.
Over and over and over again. Over periods of time. That's why I still think that the restaurant life, but maybe it was just like a.
It could be. It could be, but like then when I got out of the restaurant life, I never really had the foot problems.
Yeah.
Even like walking around, like that. I'd go visit New York City, walk around all day, and like never have any issues. And now sometimes, like if I walk around all day, I'm like, oh man, if I'm not wearing the right shoes, like just a few weeks ago, I played golf in my Metcons because that was the only thing in the car because my shoes that I bought for golf didn't fit, and I ended up with plantar fasciitis. Like the pain, I think I always had plantar fasciitis, but the symptoms of it reared its ugly head after getting out there and playing golf in my Metcons.
Yeah, the plantar fasciitis is one of those things out there that's it's a tough cookie to whatever. To beat.
Yeah, because you really gotta just kind of stay super consistent. Sometimes you gotta wear a night sock. You gotta go to physical therapy. You just gotta treat it over and for a long time.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like not to be. I mean, it's kind of like a chronic. like illness a little bit. Like it's just something that you have to manage. That'll flare up just like an autoimmune or whatever. You know, I'm just speaking from my own experiences with autoimmune, but it is like that where you're like, oh fuck, it's rearing its ugly head this week because I did. You wore your Metcons or whatever on the golf course, which like, I mean, LOL at me for dealing with the Roshis that I was wearing on the golf course. All of a sudden they felt so narrow. Yeah. I don't know how we haven't talked about this because they were so comfortable at one point or they felt fine. I wore Roshis for years, just casually. Mm-hmm. You see the guys on the golf course wearing them. They probably have custom ones that are built to literally form their foot. So whatever. Which is important for people to know that too. Mm-hmm. So don't just wear whatever the bros are on TV are wearing because theirs are literally custom made to the lace probably.
Yeah, and I talked to I'll name drop here. Like when I worked at Joey D, I talked to Matthew Wolf about this, and he wears just the Roshis. Like that's all he wears. He's got like hundreds of pairs of them that they still make and ship to him. But yeah, we talked about it. Like, you get out there and it changes how you play golf, how you walk. It's huge.
Huge.
Especially even for golfers too, right? Like at that level, right? Like I think the average golfer's not on this level, but like the distance from the ball changes a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
sure at their level, for sure.
I think him and Victor Hovland like just rock those same shoes. Like that is it. That is all they wear.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't affect my golf game. It affected me. Like it was hurting me. It made me really uncomfortable and it made it not fun. Like that sucked.
I mean, I can't believe you didn't end up walking barefoot.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like a relatively nice day. The course, we're at a country club, so it's a pretty nice course. Like,
well, because playing golf, because like swinging the golf club, actually, like literally, you need that one time where you just pivot and like, I need a little bit of like shoe at that moment. I would totally have walked, but like you need a shoe, like a cleat type thing to drive into the ground, whatever.
It was kind of wet.
Yeah, or else I probably would have seriously, but it just was like whatever. Also, again, #runner is like. Fuck it. Like I'm just so used to my toenails cutting my body and blisters. Like there's just certain things that are like, and again, that's not a good thing, but you just get used to like putting up with like stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so plantar fasciitis is a tough one. Like, and we'll talk about injuries now and training through injuries because you've been dealing with that now and training through it and working on it. And we'll probably always be working on it, honestly, for the rest of your life. And I think there are a few things like that with a lot of people that have just, again, our bodies are all different shapes, and sometimes we just have things that are. I'm always probably going to be working on like my back and my upper T-spine mobility and things like that, and my neck, whatever. Yep. But it doesn't take us out of the game. I don't think we've ever been sidelined for like a knock on whatever. But
and so like that's what I was talking about in a post the other day, because I've had quite a few people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I've got this injury, that injury. Can I do your program that's coming out?" And I'm like, yeah, and you can kind of cherry pick it and train around. So like, I always want people to make sure that if something's injured, you get it taken care of. You go to a doctor, get it checked out, figure out what's going on, but find a way to train around it. Right? You don't need to just sit on the couch for the most part, unless it's like a total body. Unless you got a lot of things going on, you're really sick or something like that. But you can probably do something. You can train something. So for example, when I had plantar fasciitis, it really flared up when you run. So this was back in the Elevate days, the group fitness class we took part in back in DC. And so I could use the rowing. So like when the cardio portion of the class came up, I could use the rowing machine. I could use the bike. I don't think they didn't have the ski ergs back then, but I could have done the ski erg had it been available. But so like, and then you would just customize it. Like say if the program said run a quarter mile, I would kind of figure out how long that would be on the rower or on the bike or something like that. And there are like conversion tables out there that people have created that you can see exactly like what the 1-to-1 ratio is or whatever it is.
But again, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that, but it's a way to stay in the game.
Yes.
And keep training.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, like, your method of just, like, you don't necessarily need people get really, like, all into the conversion table. And again, I think that can be a great thing. But also, it's, like, cool if it says run a 400 and it takes you 2 minutes to run a 400, then do 2 minutes of cardio.
Right.
Right? Like, that's just a good, like, trade-off. Or match the intensity. Like, if it's a hard row, then, like, and you're not rowing, then do a hard ski or whatever it is that you're doing.
And I found the rower actually does help the plantar fascia. It just kind of stretches out your calf and stuff like that. So if you're suffering from it, jump on the rower.
Yeah, no, it's good to know. I mean, like honestly, when I had IT band syndrome for a year, so bad that I felt like my knee was literally broken. I could not run, let alone walking hurt. You've experienced a little bit of IT. I feel like that is from you running sometimes too. I feel like whenever you do a jog.
I had the IT band syndrome, and then it radiated in my knee, right? So I had like a little bit of knee pain.
But that was an opportunity for me to like get into swimming. I started literally taking up swimming, and I wasn't a swimmer in high school. I like had a pool, but I didn't know how to swim laps. I put a cap on. I remember wearing a J. Crew 2-piece bathing suit into the YMCA pool in DC. Because that's all I had. I didn't have like a athletic swimsuit. Now that's all I wear. It's just like the athletic swimsuits. I don't even think actually I had a cap at that point, but I did have goggles and I had my J. Crew swimsuit, and I was like coming off of doing marathon training for years, and I was like, okay, like I need to keep up my conditioning. What the fuck? And I got into the pool and kind of took up swimming and like was okay at it, like really liked it, and then I got into triathlon. Like that was a whole nother thing. Right. But the point being, it's like sometimes it's an opportunity
to learn more,
to learn something else, because I think people can get really in their heads with injuries.
Right.
Both men and women, I feel like, experience just the whole, like, whether it's like an identity crisis, like that's kind of what it was for me back then, because I felt like, oh my God, the thing that I identify with is like completely been taken away from me, and it sucks. And I get the whole headspace part of that. I get people that are playing, you know, their sport of choice and they can't play it anymore. But at the same time, there really is always something else that you can be doing. And if you're seeing a doctor that's telling you not to do exercises, I mean, this isn't me giving medical advice, unless you're really, really, really hurt severely, or you had a head injury or something. Like, your doctor or your PT shouldn't be telling you not to do anything. Right. We should be moving our bodies. And
you should be getting a second opinion if that's what they tell you.
Yes, and working through injuries and helping, like getting help, whether you're healing your injury or the opportunity to do something else.
Right. Because, I mean, no matter, like, you know, if you break it down, like, you know, if you have lower back pain, there's still things you could do. You could do some body weight, like glute bridges. You could do upper body stuff, as long as you're not like standing and holding dumbbells over your head. You know, there's, and if you have like a right foot injury, you know, you could do single leg squats or lunges on the other side. Yes. Like, you know, there's always something you can do. And then, I mean, I had an athlete who had to have ankle surgery because of was he riding his motorcycle or playing basketball? One of the two. It wasn't my fault, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so but it was crazy. So he trained the other leg and his entire upper body. So like, I know see him, and he was like, had pictures of his like newborn son, and his like upper body's jacked, and I could tell, I was like, oh my God, like, you know, he's been like still lifting, like he's still doing all kinds of stuff. And then he posted a video of him putting, and it was noticeably different how much bigger one of his legs was.
Isn't it true though, if you train one leg though, that the other leg gets the benefit, or I mean, one side of your body?
Your body will still benefit from it. Like, even like, you know, like if all you did was back squats, your arms would grow.
Yes.
You know, so like it's all like it works together, even though you're not necessarily training it. Yes. So, you know, he was a good example. And then he immediately, once he got better and got cleared by his doctor to start putting weight on that other leg, he was like quickly like back squatting what he used to.
Yes.
It was wild.
Yes.
Well, granted, he's like a 23-year-old. I think he's in his early 20s, but it's crazy. But he kept going. Like, he wasn't going to let it put him down. It was a pretty cool story, you know, to watch him do that and just keep working.
I love that. I mean, again, everybody's injuries are different, and this isn't to say that like injury, I mean, they suck. They totally suck.
They suck, and they happen. Like, they happen if you're sitting, you know, you can be a very sedentary person taking out the trash and hurt yourself. You can be an extremely athletic person and never hurt yourself. You could be someone that goes to the gym once or twice a week and hurt yourself. It can just happen no matter what you're doing. Yeah,
it can happen. Or, you know, surgeries is another one too. Like, just things that like kind of get you down for a little bit. And I think mindset is just an important part of this conversation, and remembering that, like, oftentimes, first of all, everybody is going to get injured. I think that we can like literally say that anybody that's like a human being is going to have an injury at some point in their life. I think it's a human thing.
Yeah. I think even if you like sat around your house all day, you probably still something would hurt.
You would definitely. It's funny, like we hear so much about like the sport and weightlifting and whatever causing injuries. Like, the people that get injured the most and hurt the most are the ones that don't do shit.
Right.
100%. They're not strong enough to recover. Like, their recovery is shit. They get a surgery. It takes them 3 years. As a person who's strong and athletic, it takes them 6 weeks. Like,
right.
You see this with pregnant women. I've had so many pregnant clients. Guess what? The ones that strength train leading up and through their pregnancies or whatever, They feel really good in the gym afterwards. They take their time. I'm not saying they need to like jump back in and like do the crazy things 6 weeks after they have a baby, but like their recovery is 10 times better because they're strong. Their bones are better. Their muscles are still there. Like their muscle memory is there. They get back at it like time and time and time again. And I think like there's just something to be said about that. And knowing, you know, there's a balance of like knowing when to back off and not push through injury, but also to like remind yourself to keep going in some capacity, whatever that means for you, and
whatever it is,
whatever that it is,
even if it's just bicep curls.
Yes, because
like at some point, like just do something, like, because I think, you know, one of the worst things that can happen in your fitness journey is going backwards.
Yes,
and we always want to be making progress and going forward in one way or another, but we can also look at progress differently. And that's where you talk about like mindset, right? Like if we also just don't go backwards and stay the same,
yes,
because we have an injury,
yes,
and then we're ready to go back and make progress again when that injury is gone, that's great too.
Yes. Like you look at people, I mean, there's just so many examples. Like I think Tanner Shuck's a good example of somebody who's had like 98 injuries that are really intense, like back shit and knee shit or whatever he's got going on. He's
an interesting guy.
Okay, but like he's in a good example, and he's extreme.
He's like,
as
I've
fuck.
had 17 knee surgeries. Fuck my knees.
He's
like,
sort of like a David. He's like basically the CrossFit version of David Goggins.
Oh yeah, Goggins has that too.
You know, and so I'm not saying that everyone is like should be like that and like is like also still shredded and making gains and like drinking meat shakes. I'm literally not saying that, but like the point is like you can fucking do it. Like you can literally do it. I mean, I went through 2 full open abdominal surgeries in my life. If you've ever had stomach surgery, your core is everything. You can't even sit up out of bed for like weeks. But like, fuck it. Like, you know what? I'm coming out of it stronger than ever, because like that's the fucking worst thing ever when you're down and when you're sick and when you can't do what you normally can do. Guess what? When you get on the other side of that, you have a way better appreciation for what your body can handle and what it can do. You have way more grace with yourself because you were able to overcome an injury or a sickness or whatever. You tend to treat your body better afterwards because you're like, wow, okay, I am a fragile human being and I'm not like immortal. I'm gonna and like for certain types of injuries too, like you're like, cool, I'm gonna work. You know, my friend Kat's a really good example of that, who is nursing a back injury right now that she's gonna probably be working through for a long time, but she's gonna have a lot more knowledge now of the things that like trigger that injury or nag it before it gets so bad. Now she has the education. Oh, I know how to like fix this or like nip it in the bud before it gets worse.
Right.
Or like know when I need to hit my PT sessions or like whatever.
And that's important too, is going and getting it looked at.
Yes.
Unless and most people are not be able to self-diagnose, need to go have a professional check you out, see what's going on. We usually go to physical therapists, not like a full like, you know, emergency room doctor's visit or anything like that. Like we usually just go see a good physical therapist, and that way they can assess, because you know, for a lot of injuries, like say if it's your knee, for example, it's probably not your knee's fault, right? Your knee ends up being like the victim, and like it's either you got to look above or below the side of the actual pain, right? So you need to go get your ankle mobility checked out, get your hip mobility checked out, get your glute strength, get all those things looked at, figure out what is the exact problem, and then treat that, right? So you need to, like at your point, learn and grow from that. Yeah.
And again, like back to like the whole finance side of that, you know, oftentimes people are like, well, it's expensive to go to a PT or whatever. And it's like, I get it. Like I understand people have families and budgets and that sort of thing, but we also have to like remember, is the investment in going to a PT to at least assess you and give you a full body assessment of how you move, is that probably worth the investment of that time and that couple $100 to then know how to move better going forward in your training, or work with your coach or trainer to tell them, hey, my PT says I need to be strengthening the backs of my shoulders, or, you know, whatever. I have forward shoulder, whatever is going on. It's pretty much like why wouldn't you want to invest in something like that so you know, and then can prevent further injuries so you aren't sidelined or aren't spending, you know, thousands of dollars on surgeries or injuries or recovery or rehab or the PT sessions that you're ultimately going to need anyway, because you did end up really hurting yourself.
Right.
Like the maintenance side of things is really important. And I think that's something that you and I do a pretty good job of. Like if I feel something nagging, I'm like, all right,
get it taken care of.
I should probably do some sessions a few weeks in a row with my PT, like go back to doing like my exercises more regularly with my bands, like multiple times a week, like before shit hits the fan and it like really does hurt. And then I can't train for 4 weeks because everything hurts and I'm dying, you know?
And like for me, like a couple times, because I'm very much more in my head than you are. So like if something's like starting to bother me, I like kind of start freaking out, and I'm like, oh man, I messed up on this whatever I was doing, and now I have this certain pain. But then sometimes I'll go see a physical therapist. They'll check me out. They're like, oh, you just have a little bit of this going on. It's no big deal.
That's a common thing though. Actually, that's a really common thing.
You know, like so, like then like all of a sudden I'll literally go do like if it's a squat, because like I love squatting. I've said, you know, like I'm going to die on the squat hill because I think it's the king of all exercises and everyone should do it. But I'm like, oh man, you know, maybe I did hurt my knee or something doing this. And then I go get it checked out. Like, oh man, you just got a little inflammation in like your hip or you know, your IT bands, like giving you some problems. Here, do this and you'll feel fine. And then sure as shit, like I'll go squat the next day and like I won't feel anything because it's all in my head.
I mean, it's also called being a man with no pain tolerance, but that's neither here nor there.
Is it? Is that what it's called? If this is a podcast from my Instagram followers, like 85% of them are men.
I know, I love them. I'm so here for it. I'm here for them to like rage and be like, man, his wife is such a bitch. I'm like, whatever, that's great. Good for you. I don't care. No, what I was going to say though is it's really common to have like the PTSD sort of thing around injuries. I think that's really common for people. So like when you've had an injury and something goes wrong and then it like starts to nag you, it's like super common for people to be like, oh fuck, like it's happening again. And so I think that's just a good thing to acknowledge in general. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like it's our body's way of like protecting itself. But yeah, again, if that's you, then it is so good to have that relationship with your PT to like go in and like get some, whether it's sometimes you just need soft tissue work. Like we get a lot of that stuff done, whether it's dry needling that we love. People like do like the e-stim everywhere now.
Cupping is pretty popular.
Cupping. What else do they do? Just myofascial release. Like a lot of doctors too will just go in with their like elbows and their thumbs and like start to do like some like just deep pressure, like trigger massage type stuff. And
a lot of the men we've seen are jacked and they like really squeeze the hell out of you.
It hurts. It hurts real bad.
Like if you're listening, Dr. Jeff in Jupiter, Florida.
I know, seriously, he is intense. Yeah, some of that stuff was intense, and it would be like, and he would, you know, an hour-long session with him was intense. Yeah. His needles would be in for like 13 minutes, and he'd be like, all right, cool, how you doing? Now we're gonna add e-stim to all of them, or whatever he would do. And then
his biceps are as big as my quads, and like he can break you if he wanted to.
Yeah, he's intense. But he also was like that. He was fun because he was a badass athlete himself. And again, like not all PTs, I think it's really important to say that not all PTs are created equal. A lot of people still think about a PT as like the person that you get referred to by your doctor that does here's your piece of paper sheet with 4 exercises on it. Go home and like do these workouts. Like
here's your TheraBands. Have a nice day.
Yeah, like like PTs have leveled up big time. Like, and we've lived in multiple cities and always been able to have access. And we've been, I guess, like fortunate enough to live in cities that have good PTs. Because right. I'm sure like in more rural areas, it is harder. I totally acknowledge that. But like there are PTs all over this country that are independent or whatever, and they're athletes themselves and work with athletes, and they like know that they're not going to sit here and tell all their clients to like go home on bed rest. It's like, let's work through this. Let's look at your mobility. Let's assess how you're moving, and let's like learn how to correct it.
Yeah. And then if you're, you know, if you are in a rural area, or if you're just like, if you're just dead set on not going, there are some resources out there where you can check and see, you know, it's usually comes down to like a mobility, unless it was like an acute problem, like, oh, I fell off the curb and hit my knee and now I have a knee pain. Like that's like an acute injury, like you know where that came from. If it's something that happens over time, like you need to start looking, like I said, above and below the sites of the pain. Like I'll just keep using the knee, for example. So, you know, you're looking at your ankle and your hip. I've got a self-assessment that I sell online. You could check that out and see, you know, goes through everything, all the way from like your ankles, your feet, all the way up through your entire body, even your wrists and your neck and everything in between. And that you can check out and see if you are like limited in somewhere, like if you can't, again, like if you can't, you know, get your knee over your toes or something like that, you might be restricted in your ankles. You could work on your ankle mobility and just all those kind of things. And, you know, that'd be a good place to start if you just need to really check on yourself and do like a self assessment or diagnosis. It is tougher though, but it can work.
Yeah, your self-assessment is awesome. I'm glad that you brought that up because I was going to bring it up too. I think that it's a good tool to, and it's an affordable way, again, for people that don't have access, like you said, or that want to just do it from home or whatever. And it's something that you can kind of do on repeat. Like, how's your training going? Cool.
You can check in all the time. You can
every
do it,
8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, you can do it all the time. And then I even, it's a mobility program too. So like if you wanted to, if you do find that you lack like hip rotation, I put in exercises in there that'll help you with your hip rotation. And then everything else that is assessed in there also comes with corrections.
Yeah.
And if you got really consistent on those, I would almost guarantee that you're going to see some results and your pain could subside. Yeah. And I never guarantee that your pain will go away because I don't know what's wrong with you. Maybe you did fall and tear your knee up, and no amount of mobility in your hip and ankle is going to help that. But, so just put that disclaimer out there. But then, I think another thing we need to talk about too is what a lot of people do is when they end up with, and you see this in golfers all the time, and I see this out on the course all the time, is just like wrapping it up. Like if their knee hurts, if they have the golfer's elbow, I've seen guys wear like belts, like back braces out on the golf course, right? So, and that's crazy. Like typically that is like your older population is doing that, and it's from them actually playing golf, without strength training and working on their mobility, and they just that's the Band-Aid method, right? And I would imagine those guys that I've seen have those braces on. I never really ask because I want to play golf when I'm out there. I don't want to do an assessment and fix their back while I'm out there on the golf course, because I just want to play. I do give them my card and they can follow up with me later, but not beware if you're wearing a back brace. A lot of them really don't, but if you're wearing a back brace, you're gonna end up with I'm gonna give you my card at the end of the round. But I would love to. Like I said, I don't dive into it with them, but I would be willing to bet there's something going on with the hip or the thoracic spine or the core that could be addressed, and they could hopefully not wear that back brace anymore, because that can't be fun. It's hot out there. Like this was in the summer in Florida. Like these guys one guy had a knee brace and an elbow, the other guy had a back. And I was like, man, it's fucking hot out here. I bet they're sweating bullets underneath those braces and stuff too. Like those got to be nasty. I hope they wash them when they get home. But, I would love to get them in the gym and see if we could fix some of that stuff, because it can be. Again, like I don't guarantee that we're going to fix your pain. Go to a physical therapist. They can't guarantee they're going to fix your pain either. But we can definitely see if we can fix it. Like, so we can see if we can get your hips moving better, get you feeling better, at least getting it to subside a little bit. And at the end of the day, you're going to play better golf too.
Yes.
So that's always the goal.
Yeah, and it's back to like being strong and being mobile and how important that is, and understanding how your body works and understanding how to work with your body that you've been given, and not just like throw a brace on and call it good.
Yeah, and I've had people come up to me in the gym and be like, oh man, you're squatting a lot of weight. I can't believe you're not wearing a belt or knee braces or something like that. Or, if you're pressing something heavy, like why aren't you wearing, the elbow braces, which I have before. Mainly I've worn those because they do actually help you performance wise. Like if you wear wraps around your knees, you get a little more spring out of your knees and you can bounce up the weight a little bit faster. And I've worn belts just because, I thought that's what you're supposed to do. Now we really don't wear our weightlifting belts or any of that kind of stuff anymore, because I just learned how to really hone in and brace my core and protect myself that way.
Yeah, I think like that's a whole nother conversation, but like the belt for me when I was learning is actually a good way to learn what bracing your core means. It's a feedback mechanism.
You're pushing into it.
Yes, which not a lot of people use it for that, by the way. They use it as
strap
their Band-Aid. Yeah,
they ratchet on as tight as they possibly can,
and it's a sexy thing to do. Like I'm a dude with a belt. Like okay, cool. Like I'm squatting more than you.
Then I'm gonna go leg press and bench press with my belt on too.
Literally, but it gives you that feedback, like the belt specifically. I don't know. I've never worn a knee or an elbow situation. Like I don't really know what the fuck that does, but to your point, now that I know how to engage that, and it took a long time to learn that. It takes a while to like really learn that and really strengthen your core and midline in that way. But once you get the hang of that, then it's like, I don't necessarily need it. Again, it can be kind of like a confidence booster if you're going really, really heavy. But like, yeah, I haven't really worn my belt. I go heavy enough where it's like, I just don't need, I'm not a power lifter. I'm not trying to squat 300 pounds today. So like, I don't find it like necessary at all. I guess like, yeah, if I were really trying to do like a 1 rep max, maybe like it would be kind of cool to use, but it's nice to train without it and just learn how to actually use my body. The only thing that I really do enjoy using are my lifting shoes, back to the shoes, and like coming full circle. But as far as like an accessory or a thing that I like when I'm lifting heavy is the shoes.
Yeah.
But,
and same thing with like golfers, like a big common injury is like golfer's elbow.
Yes.
And so golfers will like kind of put something on their elbow. Like sometimes it's just a little strap, or sometimes it's the full like elbow sleeve. And like, that's what you'll see like in the golf stores, right? You see tons of it, and it's a very common thing. I'll just throw out there real quick. Like one of the best ways to work on that is like just isometric hold. So like doing like a heavy carry, holding your elbow at like 90 degrees, holding your golf club out to the side. I've got some of these videos on my YouTube and Instagram if you ever want to go check out how to work on your golfer's elbow. But you know, work on that stuff before you just try to slap a Band-Aid on it. Try to figure out the root cause. Go see a doctor for whatever pain you're having. Because if you're just slapping a brace on it that you buy at Walmart, it probably won't benefit you long term.
No, it won't. And I think that's a good place to wrap up. I mean, just remember to also be patient with yourself, like everything else. Like we've just talked about, you've been dealing with plantar fasciitis for 5 years, and it's something that you're going to always be working on. Like, expect to kind of work on some of your injuries that are chronic, and always need to be like reeling them in a little bit. Like it's not going to go away in 2 weeks. A cortisone shot or whatever from the doctor is not the answer. You know, it's never the quick fix or the Band-Aid approach that's going to be taking you to the next level. Learn to work with your body, get some professionals and coaches, do an assessment on yourself to see like how you move, and be honest with yourself. Right.
And like, you know, and then I think I learned this from experience. Like as soon as it started feeling better, I quit like treating it.
Yeah.
And then it comes back. So like, you know, you need to kind of realize that that's something you're going to be prone to.
Yes.
And whatever it is, like, you know, you can't necessarily point your injury at one specific thing, right? Because like it could be a combination of how you live your life and like what you're doing in the gym or what you're doing on the golf course, what your swing looks like. So, you know, I don't think you're ever really going to know exactly what caused it. So it's one of those things like you want to be much more proactive than reactive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I liked the analogy of like, it's like you wake up every day and you brush your teeth because you do it. You can't stop doing that, or else when you do, like shit's going to hit the fan. So it's the same thing. Like you kind of have to just do certain maintenance things. And if we want to have like active lifestyles, do the golf, lift the weights, then we need to do a little bit of maintenance work. Just
a little bit of body care.
A little bit of body care, whatever that is for you and what works best for you. But like you do have to kind of stick to it and invest in it. And I think that it's worth the investment versus paying for it down the road.
Yeah, you're gonna pay for it either now or later, and
it's gonna suck if it's later.
Yeah, it's gonna suck because you're gonna pay for it with pain later too.
Anyway, with that, I think we'll wrap up. This was a good one.
Yeah,
all the things, injuries / shoes. I will link some of the shoes we talked about in our show notes just to give people some context.
Yeah, and transparency is we're not sponsored by any shoe
company.
No,
not at all. Not at all.
But we're open to it.
We just threw like a bunch of random things out there, and I think it'll be helpful for people to just start to look and explore some of that stuff. And then, yeah, obviously too, check out our programs, codywescottgolf.com for the assessment that we talked about, and all of our other programs, along with our team-based subscription, Lift Heavy, Swing Fast.
That will be out.
It'll be out. It's out.
It's out.
It's out. If this is out, then the program will definitely be out. So we appreciate
awesome.
y'all for listening. Give us some feedback, send us some DMs and some messages and some things. We'd love to hear from y'all. And
a 5-star rating is nice too.
Oh, okay. Do that as well. Can't really do that on YouTube's, but
thumbs up.
You can give us a thumbs up.
Subscribe.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.